You're watching TelecomTV at the Smart IoT London event 2016, and I'm joined now by Matt Smith, who heads up the Global Business Development team for IoT at Cisco. Matt, thanks for talking with TelecomTV.
Thank you.
At the event yesterday, you gave a presentation and you were talking about the digitisation of businesses. I guess many small businesses hopefully don't think that just means getting a website up online. What do you mean by digitising business?
I think it's a lot more to do with the connectivity of business and the fact that everything is connected to everything else. You know, the world's going through this revolution at the moment. You know, when Cisco was born in 1984, gosh, way back when, there were only 3,000 devices connected to the internet. And it's only when you look back you can see how rapidly things have moved, because 2008 the world went through a tipping point. The number of connected devices equals the number of people on the planet. 8 years later, 2016, that's doubled again to 16 billion connected devices. 4 years later, that will have tripled to 50 billion connected devices. And so when we talk about businesses digitizing, it's actually making use of this connectivity. It's making use of it for things like asset utilization, for increased productivity, better awareness, and also giving you that 360-degree view of a customer. So I don't think it's something small businesses need to be afraid of, but more to understand and embrace more than anything else.
Is there sufficient awareness yet from small businesses that this is where they really ought to go to safeguard their futures?
Probably not, because this is, I mean, I've been around this industry for 5 or 6 years, starting with smart buildings, different building protocols, all of these different things. I would say it's only in the last sort of year or so things are starting to become mainstream. Obviously from a consumer standpoint, businesses will be aware. The world has gone from web-based to app-based. You know, I talked about Cisco 1984, 3,000 devices connected to the internet. You know, in 2007, there were only 3,000 mobile apps. Now there's 3.5 million. And last year there were over 100 billion downloads. So people now realize that it is becoming an app-based economy. And therefore, if you're a small business, you probably are thinking about either using an app to help your business or creating an app yourself to allow others to interact with your business.
I guess one of the problems with the term Internet of Things is the emphasis on things and the devices. But really, once you've got the devices out there, you've got to use that data. How is industry developing in terms of understanding this data flow and trying to extrapolate that data, analyse it, apply the necessary algorithms and use it productively?
I mean, it really is that connectivity of people, process, data and things. You know, the things generate the data, but at the end of the day, the analytics are going to be extremely important. You know, we're lucky, obviously we've gone through that stage of increased connectivity, but unfortunately we've gone through that stage of increased processing power as well. In 1975, a $5 million supercomputer had the same processing power as a $400 Apple IV today. And so we have the ability to actually process a lot of this information. But it's also sifting through the weeds to get to the right stuff. You know, it's always like panning for gold, because a lot of this information is only needed once. If you're on a factory floor, you have something hot going past something flammable, you just need an alarm to go off. And so that data doesn't need to be stored. But it's going to be connecting that data, and it's going to be actually changing it from data to knowledge and to wisdom. And I think that's a lot of the problems that businesses are going to face is, how do I connect all of the different silos within my company?
Is this how we get on to an outcomes-based approach and selling IoT that way?
Certainly, I mean, you know, when we talk to IT, it's very much, you know, they love Cisco feeds and speeds. We talk about how fast a router will go and all of these things. But when you talk to OT, which is operational technology, they're more interested in the outcomes. They're less interested in the technology. In fact, the technology almost becomes a byproduct, because we know it's going to change every 12 to 18 months. It's generally going to get faster and cheaper. But you're more interested in what is my ROI. So if I'm in a coal mine, as an example, and Cisco turn up, we don't claim to be experts at coal mining. But if we say with a little bit more connectivity, we can either increase your productivity by 10% or increase your health and safety metrics, people start to listen then. But they also, in the buying cycle, want to see proof as well. From Cisco, you get a pass to walk through the door. But when it comes to other people's businesses, these types of industrial technologies, a lot of the things that we do are really working and co-creating with customers, because they understand the need for it, but they obviously understand the drawbacks as well. And so they want to see it work first.
So moving away from the private sector, what about the public sector? There's an emphasis here at this show on cities, and London in particular. Is there a different approach in how IoT is being used and governed within cities?
I think it's still very much outcome-based. However, ROIs are different, because you have obviously positive ROIs when you're talking monetary terms, but it's very difficult to put an ROI on citizen services sometimes. Dubai, as an example, they want to be the smartest city in the world by 2017. Sheikh Mohammed has talked about 1,000 use cases, and his outcome is happy people. And so it really is a different way of looking at things. And also when you're dealing with cities as well, is that how they finance things, how they look at things in different ways. You have to think more in their shoes, because a mayor gets elected every 4 years. It's not like a CEO.
I guess also with cities, they see that menu of possibilities before them, and probably, yes, we'll have it all, thank you very much, but when it comes to payment, all budgets are tight, and city access to cash is quite limited now. So how do they go about actually financing this?
Well, we have to look at smart and creative models for these types of things. I mean, the one thing we do say is that you need a network as a platform. Obviously, we're in the networking business, so a little bit self-serving. However, cities understand that, because they realize to connect lots of different things, you can use lots of different networks, and that could be 3G, 4G, 5G, Wi-Fi networks, low-powered LoRa networks, all of these different things. But as you say, the cities then wonder, how do we finance these things? Some of the creative models we're using, we're looking at lighting as a service. So being able to create some sort of partnership with a city where we take a concession on lighting assets, smarten them up, turn them to LED, reduce the costs of power, use those power savings to finance the upgrade of the asset. And then the city actually then manages to keep a cost-neutral basis and gets the technology as a service. And also knowing that if you have a concession for 10 or 15 years, over that life cycle, I mean, when I joined Cisco 15 years ago, there was no wireless. So you know that new things are going to happen. So it's then creating that partnership, that smart partnership with cities that everybody shares in the upside.
So there's no mistake that the cities understand that if they're going to protect their future well-being and economies, they have to be smart.
I think very much so. I mean, I think the competition of the future, not necessarily between countries, but between cities for attracting talent. And also, because of these different phases of economic development, Europe is aging and shrinking. Germany will probably need to increase its productivity, not its GDP, but productivity by 5% a year to maintain standards of living. And so it's only when you start to connect these devices you can look for those productivity increases.
Can I move on to an aspect that concerns a lot of people? That's security. And when we're talking, not just millions but billions of connected devices out there, security is a big concern. How do we maintain the right levels of security?
The security and specifically privacy as well are always going to be very big issues. When we look at the smart enterprise as an example, the majority of large enterprises today have 40 to 60 security vendors, all with competing products that don't necessarily talk to each other. And so we've doubled down at Cisco on security. We've very heavily invested in SourceFire, an acquisition that we've made in other acquisitions, because we believe you have to have security everywhere in the network. It's never going to be perfect. However, it's about early detection, because I think the average enterprise probably loses data in 10 hours and then takes 6 months to discover that they've lost it. And so as we move forward, I think these concerns about privacy, these concerns about security are going to be more top of mind. And it's a board level discussion now.
A final question for you, and it's kind of linked to security as well, and that's standards. How important is it that as we develop the IoT sector that we create and adhere to globally recognized standards?
It's going to be, standardization is extremely important. We look at, when I talk to you about smart buildings, the internet, started with hundreds of standards and now it's down to 4 protocols. Buildings, probably about 300 protocols, collapsing to about 150. We can't even decide what type of plug we should have around the world. But standardization is extremely important. And I think the one thing about IP in particular is it kind of levels all of those things. And so whether you have a DALI light or whether you have a SCADA system, if you can convert all of those things to digital and onto IP protocols, at least you can actually start to manage all of those things discreetly across platforms, because these platforms, this conversion layer is going to be extremely important to take legacy technologies and bring them into the digital world.
Matt, thank you very much indeed for talking with TelecomTV.
Thank you very much, appreciate the time.